Welcome to the Sleep Stories channel by UZZ. I am delighted to share a new story with you. Before we begin, please take a deep breath and relax your body. Then, find the most comfortable position for yourself and get ready to soar into the universe of stories. The night grew deeper, and the once bustling and noisy city gradually retracted its enthusiastic and exuberant facade. In an inconspicuous corner, a painter wearing a black hat leaned weakly against the wall, sitting down with a blank expression. Beside him were several paintings, which he considered his masterpieces. The painter was tall, with meticulously combed hair and a handsome face. If an uninformed passerby encountered him, they would most likely mistake him for a nobleman. But who could have imagined that he was just a destitute painter who had to rely on selling paintings on the street to make a living? The painter had loved art since he was young. Counting on his fingers, he had been painting for over 10 years. He had worked extremely hard over the years. While his peers were out having fun, the painter always stayed in his studio, studying various painting techniques. His dream was to leave behind a painting that would be praised by the world. Unfortunately, except for some initial praise from his teacher, no one ever showed any interest in the painter's works. As his life became more difficult, he had no choice but to sell his paintings on the street. Ironically, his imitations of famous masters' paintings sold surprisingly well, while his self-proclaimed masterpieces went unnoticed. To him, this was a blatant mockery. Gradually, his friends advised him to give up, but the painter remained stubborn. He believed that one day, his paintings would be appreciated. However, as days passed, nothing changed. That night, the painter, carrying his paintings, walked dejectedly into a bar. He drank one glass after another until everything around him began to blur. In a daze, under the dim light of the bar, he seemed to see God. So he shouted to God, "God, please give me a chance to become a great painter. I am willing to pay any price for it." Just as the painter finished speaking, he felt a wave of dizziness and then lost consciousness. When he woke up, he found himself in a greenish space, with colorful lines flying everywhere and the rich aroma of paint filling the air. In front of him suddenly appeared a little elf glowing with a bright green light. "Who are you?" the painter bravely asked. The little elf smiled and replied, "I am the god of stories. These colorful lines flying around are the storylines I casually draw." Casually draw? Shouldn't stories be well thought out before being written? Just like painting, the painter asked, puzzled. The little elf shook his head. Even a god cannot create a complex web of stories in one stroke. Not even God. He continued, since God brought you to me, there must be a reason. Tell me, what troubles have you been facing lately? Upon hearing this, the painter vaguely recalled his drunken memories. He suppressed his doubts in astonishment and poured out his sorrows to the god of stories. The god of stories pondered for a moment before answering. Do you know? The principles of stories and painting are actually the same. Your paintings are like creating stories, you just haven't realized it yet. The painter was even more confused. Stories? I'm just painting. The god of stories smiled, waved his hands, and the painter's works suddenly appeared out of thin air. Close your eyes and feel it with your heart. Here. You don't need your eyes to see your paintings, he said softly. The painter, half believing, did as instructed. Slowly, he felt the figures in his paintings begin to move slightly. Some of them had their lips slightly open, as if they wanted to say something to him. But unfortunately, their lives seemed to be just a brief moment. Apart from these changes, the painter felt nothing else. He closed his eyes and fell into deep thought. After an unknown period, the painter finally opened his eyes with a look of sudden realization. He understood that the reason his paintings were not appreciated was that he focused too much on the surface and neglected the inner essence. He should create from the depths of his emotions, painting as if writing a story, and the story would naturally become the painting. A flash of white light, and the painter dazedly opened his eyes to find himself alone in the bar. He had returned to the real world. Not long after, the painter went back to the streets, but this time, he brought his new works. Soon, these paintings, full of character, attracted some passers-by. Many buyers said they felt a great resonance with his paintings. The painter's works began to be appreciated by more and more people, and his name gradually spread to every corner of the city. Many years later, the now successful painter sat comfortably on his sofa at home, looking at the paintings that filled his house. He recalled that incredible experience when he was drunk in the bar. As he thought about it, he suddenly realized something. Perhaps he was his own god of stories?